Unnamed Novel 01 Read Through. This was it. The grand finale. The last hurrah, the curtain call. I stood there ready. It was going to be beautiful. Remembered throughout all of history as one of the most artistic and creative stories on earth. A renaissance of the storytellers, a resurrection of life. A life spent telling of all its fragments. I had it all planned out. Nobody knew yet, but when the sun rose upon this piece of art, everyone would know and never forget that day. This was it. The stage set. The cogs were in motion. There was no stopping it. People everywhere had said that this was just an escape from me. This was so much more than an escape. Da Vinci would have been impressed with the machine I invented, the story composed, designed for one sole purpose: to explain why. Why people keep creating things, though all feels lost. How does it keep going? But there was one piece astray, one strand of canvas left loose. Where lies the conclusion? This, I thought, this can't be finished yet. The story wasn't done, the ending unpolished. Can it be published like this? Can I die knowing something like this? No. It couldn't. I couldn't. This simply was not the end of it. I was not done yet. As soon as I thought that thought, I knew I couldn't let it go unfinished like that. It would not yet be legend, but a myth of what will be in my head until that ending is written. And it will be written. Someday. Chapter 1. Monday morning. The end of what was beautiful and the beginning of getting there again. A small amount of morning light pours into my small room, illuminating what was hidden by night, covering me and my surroundings in a soft golden glow. Deep breath, out of bed. My work honestly seems to have no purpose, and inspiration is rather difficult to come by in a city of mundane life. And yet, here I stand, pouring myself a steaming hot mug of the only thing I truly wake up for, it only to have that morning motivation be drained from the cup, then it's gone again. And it's like life. You have the beautiful things where you can relish in their splendor, but only for a short time. All things empty out in the end, it seems. I get dressed, put on an artificial body, business suits and bland colors alongside a masquerade of myself. Another facade to make it seem like I'm actually somewhat alive enough to be telling people what in God's name is going on in our country. As if they really cared. If the general populace truly cared about what they cry over, maybe things would be different. Anyway, that's not exactly my problem now, is it? I'm not sure why I'm still working there, to be quite frank with you. Even with financial security, that job does nothing less but melt off what little bit of sane humanity I've got left. But alas, I pick my keys off my key rack, lock my door, and I'm off for the day in whatever terrible darkness it has awaiting for me in my office cubicle. At the bus stop, I open my briefcase to find paperwork and assignments that I was given last week and subsequently ignored until I had to look at it and actually had to get it done. As if they could do nothing more than kill Forrest printing the useless shit that could have easily been sent to my email inbox. All I read in there was the usual. Wars, famine, crime, disgrace, a sad perversion of what once was, lackluster scripts, and least of which plenty of improper punctuation. I leaned in closer to the reporter's writings, and a sense of curiosity pulled a heartstring of mine that had once made me want to work at that newspaper. Granted, at the end of the day, I got the role of editor, but I still had to make the stories written as professional as possible. But this is something I immediately grabbed onto. I wanted to know the whole story, the why, the thoughts behind such a thing. The bus stopped. Looking out the window, I realized I had nearly subconsciously entered and sat on the bus, all while reading these reports. Quickly gathering all my things, I joined the exiting queue and walked through the newspaper's front door. Packed to the seams, the foyer of this newspaper office looked to have more life in it than the people occupying it. As I arrived at my office floor, it was the same thing I saw every day. Overly caffeinated workers working toward a pointless end with the possible hope of making something right again that's gone terribly, terribly wrong. Settling into my desk and opening up my inbox, scanning through the pointless uses of valuable data space. But there was an email from my boss with the exact articles he printed out and gave to me. As if he had nothing better to do. Kill more trees, I thought. That'll give me something to write about at least. I worked and typed tirelessly throughout the day, fixing grammatical errors, putting the finishing touches on tomorrow's new edition, only stopping to eat, drink, and use the restroom. As much as I didn't want to be, I was still human. I reread and retyped the waste of ink that we all call a daily read, used to conform to the image that our organization wanted to portray, consistently causing mayhem in our city with fear-mongered citizens, tricked into believing, shoved to agree. Anyone against it was fooling themselves. Out loud, asked myself, what have we become? Just then, a coworker of mine decided it was high time to bother my hard work with a badly placed visit to my office. Probably a fascist corporate-run dystopia if I had to guess. Here we go. Good afternoon, Gail. What can I do for you? I asked, putting forward the usual courtesy with little to no substance behind it. Not much to be done, Xavier. It's another day in paradise here, Gail responded. Optimism. Here. That's a candle soon to be put out, I thought. If only it were paradise, huh? I said. Apparently, Gail couldn't take the subtly obvious hint that I wanted to tell him kindly yet forcefully to fuck off and let me be. He proceeded to bore my already lifeless existence with more of the latest gossip of the office, as if I actually cared that the bookkeeper is a lesbian and somehow managed to hook up with her ex-husband's wife. Might have made a decent cover story, better than the trash my overlord CEO had sent me to print. Sorry, did I say overlord? I meant job protector. I'm sorry, Gail, but I've really got to get this work done and printed out by Wednesday. Gesturing to the decent pile of paperwork flooding out my printer, I acted as if I was actually sorry, but in all reality, I just wanted him to leave and not return anytime soon. That being said, he peacefully went on his way to live another day in this soul-sucking excuse for a job. As the workday finally ended, all that was left in the office were the hyper-enthusiastic interns hoping to finally get a paid job after being here after 3 years in trash bins filled with crumpled up bits of paper and wasted print. The breeze that came through the front office doors was a kind welcome back to the outside world. It was a nice evening, with skies painted orange, red, yellow, and the perfect shade of blue to make it all seem like one big happy Bob Ross painting. I decided to take a walk, and possibly get a drink at the local coffee shop and bar and listen to the live music they usually play these Monday evenings. The Daily Brew. That's the name. I don't know why. Neat name, but no story behind it. At least the coffee wasn't bad. Good evening, Xavier, the bartender said enthusiastically as I walked up and sat down. Good evening. I'll have the evening special, please, I said to the bartender. I never actually found out how he knew my name, but I really didn't care. The evening special was very easily my favorite drink. Nice dark blend spiked with Frangelico, my favorite liqueur. Mellow but nutty, it mixed perfectly with that sweet dark Colombian blend. Coming right up, one evening special. As I watched the old man begin mixing my drink, I noticed he had a litter of small scars located on his upper right arm. What might those be? I asked. What, these? He said. These are frack scars from the war. Quite vague, but I wagered a guess. Vietnam? Yes, sir. Served from 72 until we withdrew in 75. I was intrigued, but this didn't surprise me. This man looked like he had fought wars. A potential story, perhaps? That's quite incredible. Thank you for your service, I said. Thank you, kind sir, he responded, nodding in my direction and giving me a grin. He turned back to his mixing, and I took a moment to search my surroundings, drinking in the peaceful scene that made this short stroll all worth it. The Daily Brew was a decent outdoor place, open to the beautiful skies, and was usually sparsely populated, which made it all the better, in my opinion. There was a small wooden platform where local artists usually perform something that fits the aura of the shop, and tonight there was an older man, possibly in his late 50s, sitting on a stool with a guitar old as music itself, plucking out a nice, simple tune. What was it like, if I may ask? I asked cautiously, the journalist inside me rearing its head once more. The war? he asked. Terrible. I lost many of friends, and even a cousin of mine who had fought valiantly beside me until this grenade, he pointed to his arm, took his life right before my eyes. That really is terrible, I said. My condolences on your loss. It's all right now, my friend, he said as he handed me my drink. Enjoy, he said with a smile. Thank you, sir. I felt rather poorly for having asked such a personal question, but it gave me another one to ask myself. As I finished the small piece of peace in the midst of personal utter chaos, I stood to leave. The sun was setting, as was my wont to be outside, and thus was the ending of my day, as blue mixed with the colors of the sunset, the skies go black. My world is once again plunged into darkness, and as I await the cold warmth of daylight to bring to light that was once hidden. I arrive at my home, awaited by none, to perform the nightly ritual of showering, brushing, and getting into bed. As I drift off, I find myself wondering what it would be like to sleep my life away, to leave, to be free of the burden of living that keeps me up at night. In the midst of seeming hopelessness, how do we keep on? The bartender, after tragedy, how could he smile? What life might lie in such death? This thought pursued me into sleep. I awoke in the unholy hours of the morning, feeling completely dehydrated. I should have drank some water before I went to bed. Groping through the impenetrable darkness, I hope to find my light switch before knocking over everything in my room in the process. I flip the light switch and work my way into my cramped bathroom. I find myself looking in the mirror. A small shower stands just behind its small curtain and a toilet next to my cracked sink, right below the only mirror in the house. I hate looking in the mirror. Why? Because of what I see. What I see is a man, not myself, unkempt and nearly broken by the world. A cynic, commonplace in the modern year. I was, or at least wanted to be a storyteller, yet I stayed at the newspaper. Fear of the uncertainty and unknown is the killer of many dreams. There had always been thoughts and hopes of writing a literary masterpiece, of being someone, or even something of interest. Maybe if I did, people might then notice. But I was afraid to move. Maybe if I talked about it, maybe then they would care. Nobody ever had before. People leave, come, and then leave again as if they were never there. How do I know? Well, my parents divorced and put me up for adoption at the age of 13. Years of abuse, mental and physical, until I left that system, driven by my need for freedom. With a knack for writing and an eye for the uncommon, I began writing. I wrote until I could write no more, and got better and better until I got hired at our local paper. 12 years I've written. Story after story, page by page, I poured my heart into this job until there was nothing left, and here I stand. Empty and broken, lost and alone. I don't know how long I stood there, looking at my reflection. I was only woken from my trance by my alarm going off, informing me that the day had indeed started, and it was high time to begin the usual morning routine. I pour my coffee as I cook breakfast. I sit at my small table looking over the busy street below, wondering how other people live their lives, doing different jobs, enjoying other people, and if they would notice if another apartment suddenly became empty. Curiosity seemed to grow, and I wondered what it would be like to have friends, a family, someone to come home to after a night out with the guys, a warm body to keep my cold one alive, and children to have a purpose to keep working. Wistfully, I fantasized until a glance at my watch told me it was time to go. I forced my mind to step back into reality. The likeliness of said things occurring was far too minuscule for my taste, but my coffee was good, and such was my morning. It was the simplicity of the moment causing my breath to catch as I looked out my window before leaving. Warm sunlight covered me as the cool morning breeze kissed my skin. A fleeting, rare emotion washed over me. Contentedness. Peace. The one thing I had, yet lost. I deeply desired it, yet I wasn't going to take the steps to get there again. Choosing to live in the moment, I decided to up my daily cardio and walk to the office instead of taking my usual daily bus. Any depressing newspaper segment could let me be late for once. People never actually read it anyway, right? My mind wandered as the scenery passed by me, and I began thinking. Days like this, beautifully illuminating city streets, were why I chose to walk. A good story to write, and I wrote. Newspaper segments that needed fixing, I rewrote. But behind it all, what was I looking for? I felt searching, clawing for a deeper feeling of life. And what for? Then again, what did other people do to try and find that same thing, whatever it may be? Was it happiness we were searching for? No. A fleeting aspect of life and emotion. It had left me high and dry after I achieved my supposed next point of life. What then? My pulse quickened. I had to find out. I had to discover what.